Random Maker!
Hi, Matt from The Random Maker here, and if you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you want to find out how 3D printing works. So I'm going to call this the 3D printing guide for dummies. Now, I'm not going to be going through the whole process, how to work it, but I'm just going to be explaining the whole process and the three main components of a 3D print. Okay, and notice I didn't say printer. There's three separate sections of the 3D printing process that we're going to go over today. And let's get going. Okay, before we actually get started with the video, how about let's define what is 3D printing. 3D printing is the process of depositing material in a layer by layer fashion, eventually creating a solid object after all the layers are connected. And that's incredibly important because when you say 3D printing, a lot of people think of what's referred to as a FDM printer is when you say that comes to mind. But if we actually go in a definition sense, 3D printing can be done with concrete, metal. You can do PLA, ABS, TPU, epoxies, even wood apparently. Yeah, I know. It's weird, but we'll go with that. So my point is here, this video is more focused on the home hobbyist side, and maybe the smaller commercial use, not large scale, because that's a whole other process altogether. But you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Now that that's out of the way, let's start looking at how do you want to create your model, because that's kind of important. All right. Okay. Let's talk about models at this stage. As in my opinion, there are three main ways to get models. There are others, but these are the three main that I think would be commonplace. So let's start with number one. Number one is just download them off the internet. They are both free and paid models, and that's awesome. There are many different depositories of 3D models. You know, you've got Thingiverse, YAG, Cults. It's just three examples. There are many, many more, and I want to be very clear on that. Those are just the three I use quite frequently if I need to find a model. And I also will say, while the free models are amazing, there are some ridiculously talented 3D modelers out there who are focusing on 3D printing, and I've actually ran into a point where my bottleneck of quality was not my printers, but it was the quality of the model. I bought a couple paid ones and I realized this, and it was just amazing the detail and quality that I could get out of a printer that I thought was at its quality max. All right, so that's one way. Number two, you can model it yourself, and there are tons of different types of software, both paid and free, both really hard to use, really easy. So off the top of my head, there's three I mainly use in both my professional and personal life. You know, you've got the Autodesk products, mainly Inventor on that one. You've got Blender, and you've also got, well, I guess it's an Autodesk product too, same company, but I kind of put it off into a different category, is Tinkercad, which I will say, if you have never done modeling before, start with Tinkercad. It is free for non-commercial use, and I can get somebody on that software designing and printing in like under an hour. It is that incredibly easy. Also, there's going to be a lot of tutorials on the Random Maker because of that ease of use and free, because why should money be the biggest barrier to entry? Unfortunately, it is, but so we're trying to figure out ways to make it cheaper for you. And the third and final option, which unfortunately I have the least amount of experience, is scanning in images. All right, I know you can do it now with your phones. You can buy specific 3D scanners, and there's a huge area around that. I have the least amount of experience with that because for me, I'm usually more into the either want a product to fix a problem or I'm going to design one by myself. So the scanning to me, I understand it, but it's just something I haven't explored yet. All right, well, that's the modeling side of everything. Now let's move into the how do we take a model to print. And so you need, okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is splicing software. Splicing software is where you take the model and put it into and process the model into a language called G-code that printers can understand, because 3D printers in a sense are just CNC devices. Now, the splicer is where you can decide how fast the machine's going to print, how fast the bed's going to move, or how relatively how it's going to print it, and what the infill is, and all this stuff. Okay, I can go on for days. There'll be more later, but this is just an overview. Okay, now splicers can become proprietary. So some machines, I have one at work that it only uses their proprietary software. The advantage to that is I throw a print in, it works. It's awesome. On the other hand, at my home, I have an Ender 3 for prototyping, and that particular machine is very open source, user friendly, which the advantage is I can tweak and make it perfect to my specifications. But the downside is you have to tweak and make it to your specifications. And there are some minor differences with the Ender, for example, because it's a lower end price product. Still amazing, let me be clear. Or I'm picky. We'll just say that either way. But in the end, your splicing software you pick or have to use is where you control the machine and generate the code that the printer is actually going to print. You know, you've got some open source free ones such as Kira and Prusa, or then you've got other printing devices, I'm not going to use names, that if you buy their product, you have to use their proprietary software. I'm not as big of a fan of those, but for ease of use, it does work. And so, yeah, that's all I really have to say about splicers in this context, because there's not a lot at this stage, because this is an overview, not a detail, but we'll go into details another day. All right, let's move on to the fun part, which is talking about 3D printers themselves. All right, piece of advice, ladies and gentlemen, if you are editing YouTube footage, double check before you walk away, because it turns out the end of this video was actually corrupted originally. Okay, now we're going to talk about the machines themselves. And CNC 3D printers, and I said CNC on purpose, but 3D printers on a whole seem complicated, but they are incredibly simple, and that's the cool part. There are many different types of printers, and we're not going to go into that today, because this video is supposed to be short and just a quick overview of 3D printing, and that's it. But it is a simple device that translates G-code, which is your X, Y, Z axis, and your feeds, your speeds, your heats, and other features that you are able to activate based on your splicer and G-code, and produce a object in front of you by moving the head of a device, or in some cases, printing an entire layer, each layer singularly, in the case of other types of printers. And what it does is it stacks layer upon layer, fusing each section together to create one solid image. And that's it. 3D printers at their core are incredibly easy. And the funny part is they can be used to do so many things. It's actually amazing at this stage. All right, well, we're going to call it a day for there. All right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this helped you out understanding the very basics of 3D printing and the three main parts you have to take a look at. If you liked the content in this video, why don't you consider subscribing? Hit the like button. Put a comment below if you have any project ideas. It is not limited to 3D printing. We can do wood, metal, and software, or pretty much anything that we can bring an expert onto the Random Maker. And if you even want to present or create a video through the Random Maker, check out our website and it'll have more instructions on who to contact. All right. This is Matt from the Random Maker saying, let's get making.